Hey Moonlovers, welcome to another episode of All Things Moon, Lunar Wisdom for Everyday Life with myself, Kelly Jones. And I'm going to apologise now if I get an interruption in the middle of this podcast again, because, Mercury is retrograde and Tom is supposed to be out for the whole of the evening. I am actually jumping online to teach a class straight after recording this podcast, and he's just let me know that his plans have been cancelled and he's on his way home. So excuse me if I sound like I'm rushing through this. I'm just going to go for it, not as prepared as I would like to be. But let's get on with the subject in hand. So Mars today turns retrograde in the sign of Leo. So if you've been listening to my previous podcast, you would know that Mars had been traveling through Cancer. I have Mars in Cancer in my birth chart, so I really strongly felt that Mars transit across my Mars in Cancer there. And Mars has moved into Leo, going forwards, taking action, all fired up, and now he has gone in reverse, rewind, and is eventually on January the 6th going to be popping back into Cancer for a fairly long time, and then he'll be going forwards again, going back past my Mars and back into Leo again. So at least we're getting some experience of what to expect from this transit. So Mars literally goes retrograde about once every 2 years. So it's relatively unusual to have this transit. We don't get it that often. But when we do, particularly dependent on our birth charts and where Mars appears, depends on how strongly we're going to feel it. But out in the world, we shall definitely see some of that playing out because Mars, the god of war, the planet of conflict, the planet of action, the warrior. So, what have I got to tell you? So, as we know, as we talked about last week, Mercury is also retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. So, Mars is joining Mercury, going in reverse, in rewind to see out the rest of 2024. So we are having a double dose of reflection time. And my cat is trying to sit on my lap here, so apologies if you hear some purring down the microphone. So with Mercury in the fire sign of Sagittarius, having us review our beliefs and how we communicate them, and Mars in the fire sign of Leo, inviting us to rework our motivations and our frustrations. We'll be looking at ways for this little period of time in how to temper our tempers. So we got in my moon ceremony, the new moon in Sagittarius ceremony last Sunday, we were talking about how in the tarot deck, Sagittarius is represented by the Temperance card. So hence my advice to temper any tempers that come up during this potentially frustrating time. So truly though, rather than resisting and reacting to this rewind in this Mars retrograde, is giving us the opportunity to take a step to reflect on how we channel our energy out into the world. It gives us a chance to look at what we have created through ourselves, through our actions and our beliefs, or our inactions, so things that we haven't done as well. So what actions have we needed to take that we haven't taken? have we expressed our truth? Because Leo is about self-expression, being who we truly are, being our authentic selves. And have we asserted our boundaries? You know, I won't go into one on that too much about my personal boundaries, but yes, I have been having to really work on those. That Mars going through Cancer for me has been really, really strong and has really made me have to sit back and look at how I'm giving my power away. And that's where boundaries come in. So this is a really good time to review how we deal with conflict, aggression, irritation, frustration. With Mars heading back into Cancer on January the 6th, that's where passive aggressive is a key word. Cancerians don't know what to do with aggression. Mars is not happy in Cancer. He can't be his aggressive self. So passive aggressive is what usually comes up in that scenario. So it's again a chance for us to look at where we might be that way and how can we assert ourselves better with those boundaries that we have been reviewing and putting in place during its retrograde through Leo. When Mars is in Cancer, it will be looking at our need for emotional security, being protective of our environment, our home, ourselves, and our loved ones. Oh, we're talking of loved ones. If you're watching me on camera, how beautiful is this? You know, unconditional love here with my beautiful bully cat, Indy. This is Indy. So how we protect ourselves and others, and also re-examining childhood wounds. So Mars in astrology symbolizes the planet. It's the planet of passion and motivation, our will and our drive to do something, to achieve something. It's the energy that's like the propeller that makes us take action going forwards. And at the moment, Mars is going backwards. So when a planet is retrograde, it doesn't mean that it's weaker, but it can mean that it's stronger because it means that the planet is closer to the Earth. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't take action, but our will and need to move forwards may be kind of restricted by the fact that we need to review how we're doing it because it might not be serving us so well. So you know, it helps us to be guided by our instincts and how we strive forwards towards our desires. So Leo is very much about our desires. It's about the heart. It's about how we express ourselves in the world. It's about generosity and warmth, not necessarily hot and fiery. But with Mars in there, it can come out that way. So it, again, as I said, it's how we channel our energy out into the world, what our personal power, how that's being, is that being forced, or are we in our power so that we don't need to force it upon? You know, it's how we advocate for ourselves as well. It's to do with our ambition and how we assert ourselves in the world. Mars also rules the body. It's a yang energy. So Mars being retrograde could be also a time for a physical recalibration. So the class that I'm teaching online is for a friend of mine. She's got a membership site called My Body Fits, and she's asked me to do something restorative because, you know, people have been pushing themselves, but this is a time to sort of review that and recalibrate that. So it's perfect timing for me to be exploring that with her. So and talking of restoring, I am having my tea here It's one of my homebrewed herbal teas from things that I have dried. So in here is yarrow, elderflower, and echinacea. Because the constant change of temperature is making me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being open to maybe my immune system being affected, because it's either been like 15 degrees or like minus something here. And it keeps jumping from one day to the next. We just, one day I've got too many clothes on and I'm too hot, and then the next day not enough and I'm too cold. So taking good care of myself there. So the physical side of Mars would be to do with food, sleep, exercise, physical health. So the red planet goes retrograde, as I said, about once every 2 years. Um, it starts today in Leo and ends in the sign of Cancer on February the 23rd. So we've got a really long stretch of Mars retrograde here. So its journey through Leo is going to kind of set us a little challenge to reflect and review and rework whether our actions are really serving us. What is it that we want to actualize? What are our desires? Or what we're doing, and we're just doing it for external validation for our ego, because Leo can be quite about ego and, look at me, approve of me, adore me. So, in its lower expression of itself, but in its full highest expression, it's very comfortable in its self-expression, in its power, and, it doesn't need validation because you just know. So a confidence, a natural confidence. So that's something that we can sit down and review in our journals, spend some time looking at. It's how we use our creative energy as well. It's a very creative sign. It's about our vitality, and that is a choice. We can choose to have more vitality if we put the work in. So we have a chance here to reinvest in the way that we receive. So we get a higher return on our efforts. Yeah. So Leo is heart energy. So it can also mean the physical heart. So really taking care of your physical heart here. And you can take care of your physical heart not just by physical exercise, but by opening your heart, by being more generous, being more kind, being warmer. Um, Sorry, I'm struggling with my cat on my lap here. I'm just going to move backwards a little bit so she's got a bit of space. There we go. There we go. Is that better? So yeah, it's the need to be seen and heard, to be loved and adored. Mars retrograde along with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is really a time to be truthful with ourselves. Sagittarius is the truth teller, can be very blunt and say it how it is. I am a Sagittarius rising, and I quite often will be heard saying it how it is, that person. So if we use that Mars in Leo courage from the heart to admit that we need to be acknowledged, that we need to be center stage sometimes, that we need to be in the spotlight sometimes. And literally, I've got these anti-glare glasses, but as you can see, there's still a bit of a glare. And my glasses are green, so you've now got a green glare. Because of this retrograde energy, though, I think that we need to turn that spotlight, instead of having it on the outside of us, we need to turn it inwards. So we need to illuminate and turn that spotlight on our inner worlds to truly understand ourselves. What beliefs have led to us being overlooked and having that need for external validation? How can we temper our ego? Where do we need to open our hearts? Where do we need more courage? Who is loyal? Are you loyal? This is very Leo. Where in our body do we feel our rage? Could we dance? Could we sing? Could we laugh and express ourselves creatively instead of destructively? So these are all things to take note of. You might need to look into how you can have a more balanced way of being and existing in the spotlight. You know, are you attention seeking because you don't feel worthy of being heard? These are hard questions to be truthful and honest about with ourselves, aren't they? How can you cultivate confidence in your worth and know that others are noticing you because you're radiating from the heart, your true self? Strala Yoga means to radiate light, to beam broadly, to shine. So maybe consider taking up Strala Yoga during this time. Just saying. You know, I am a little biased, but I do love Strala Yoga, and I am a Strala Yoga guide. And I have just put up on my website some private, personal, individualized Strala Yoga sessions with myself. If you're interested, I am looking for those of you who are wanting to fully commit to yourself so that you can feel and be more like yourself. And I will fully commit to helping you with that. But I have put, you know, a little caution in there that you need to pay for that, commit to that. No refunds, no cancellations. I will send you a recording if you miss your session. But yes, that is something new for the new year, or we could get started before the new year if you wish. You know, send me a message and we can discuss it, or just book in and be spontaneous. Mars is in its fullest expression. Should be like your inner hero. Is the love warrior, not the warrior of conflict, the war warrior. You know, let's use it in a positive way. The hero's journey, a life passage in which we retrieve our own heroism. You know, to be true, a true hero involves being assertive. It involves strength. The strength card in the tarot has the lion on it. Courage, but also gentleness, warmth, restraint, tempering our temper. So during this Mars retrograde little journey, we're going to be tested out in a number of ways for those things. So I'm a Sagittarius rising. So if you know your rising sign, you can have a look in your birth chart to see where Mars, which house area Mars is going to be showing up for you. So to give you an example, I'll tell you about Sagittarius rising. So this is going to be kind of showing up by questioning your perspectives, inquiring into your beliefs, letting you go on a journey within and ask yourself questions. You know, how do I feel I belong in this world? You know, what do I believe about life, about truth? So as January begins, the inner journeying will take you deeper within. And this is a time to explore your relationship with your inner power, your emotional expression, your self-assertion. Just a little trigger alert here. So just a little note on Mars returning to Cancer, just in case I don't fit another podcast in before January the 6th. I'm planning on it, but who knows? Mars being retrograde, Mercury being retrograde, could all go wrong. But, looking positively, remember that Mars doesn't do very well in Cancer. He's in his fall or his detriment there. So he can't be his full self. It's a bit of a struggle. So Mars can show up as a whiny warrior, bit whiny, So some of the challenges could include, you need to be direct, not passive aggressive. Instead of avoiding conflict, confront it. Step into it, but being assertive with boundaries, avoiding self-sabotage, sticking to what it is that you mean, not battling on behalf of someone else that you are sympathizing with and losing yourself. These are all things to remember. So, don't get triggered when that happens. Also, if you habitually cry as a weapon, that transit might cause you to have a look at that manipulative habit and what it costs you. So yeah, I did give a trigger warning there, but we sometimes need to sit with ourselves and admit to ourselves, be truthful, use this Mercury Sagittarius truth, this Mars in Leo courage to face up to what it is we need to be able to truly express ourselves without conflict. So maybe do some research and learn about conflict resolution. And choose your battles wisely. Sitting down and journaling about this can be really cathartic. As I said before, your boundaries, do you have any? Do you need any? Have you expressed them fully? Are they clear? Or are they unclear? Because if they're not clear, you're much more likely to lash out. So, this is a time to really, get better at that. We all muck up. We all muck up sometimes. I did yesterday. I overreacted to something and I ended up apologising for overreacting. And then the same thing happened the other way round today. He reacted and I said to him, why apologise for my reactions, my overreaction? So he was like, oh, I'm sorry for overreacting. So we were tempering that and admitting to it, because that's part of, tempering it, isn't it? So on a final note, in the next year, the larger outer planets will all be changing signs. Many experienced astrologers have looked back as far as they can look for thousands of years and have never seen what's happening in the next year into 2026 before. So this is the unknown. So the better and stronger we feel on the inside, the better we can deal with the unknown. So all the planets apart from Jupiter that are going to be moving signs are going to stay for a few months, and then they're going to do what Pluto did. So remember when Pluto was sort of trying to come out of Capricorn into Aquarius, and then he retrograded back, and then he went back into Aquarius for a little while and then retrograded back, just to make sure that collectively we had been reminded of what change was needed, and personally what change was needed, before he moved on to Aquarius for the next 20 years. So Jupiter, once it moves into the sign of Cancer, which I believe is, I've got the date here somewhere, so that'll be on the 9th of June. Personally, I'm looking forward to that because Jupiter is in her exaltation in the sign of Cancer, so she is performing at her best there. And Jupiter represents abundance, joy, optimism, justice, truth, all of that. And so where I've had this Mars transit going on for that long period of time, it's going to be such a relief to have my ruling planet of my birth chart in my sign of Cancer. So any of you out there might be feeling that relief too. So we'll look at how that shows up for us as a balancer to a lot of the other changes that are going on, a lot of the other big aspects. So ultimately, by 2026, when all those planets, and I'll tell you them in a minute, when they've all shifted for their long stay, we will see humanity having a whole new experience, of which we have no idea yet. But I'm sure the explosion of spiritual practices that has occurred in the past few years, whilst Neptune and Saturn have been travelling through Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, the sign of spirit. So it's where we return to spirit. Saturn has been helping us commit to our spiritual practice. Neptune has been dispelling any illusions around that as well, helping us to be more imaginative, to open up our imaginations, to see the dream again, to be able to dream again. I'm sure our spiritual practices that really have been growing exponentially. So even if you're watching the news all the time and it all looks bad out there, behind the scenes, millions of people have been waking up and taking on a spiritual practice, finding and discovering themselves, personal growth. Look at how that has exploded out in the world. Yoga and gong baths and astrology, all of these things. It is no coincidence that they have come back for us to rediscover them and remember them at this time when we are most going to need them, so that it helps any negative changes that happen out there in the world to not be at their fullest expression, so that there is that balance there. It's up to us what we do with it. Remember, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are our own leaders. We don't need these crappy leaders who say they're leaders. All they lead us into is poverty, depression, and war. So I won't get too soapboxy about that. So what planets? So as I said, Jupiter is moving into the sign of Cancer on the 9th of June 2025 next year. Saturn is moving into the sign of Aries, the beginning again, the pioneer, the leap of faith, the Fool card, on the 25th of May. And as I said, we'll be, going backwards and forwards in there. And in 2026, we'll be in there for the long stay. Uranus is moving out of Taurus, where it's been for 7 years, into the sign of Gemini on the 7th of July, which is my birthday. Could be a shocking, surprising day. And Neptune is also moving into Aries on the 30th of March. So lots of big stuff, lots of reasons to come back to this podcast and listen to the lunar news. And if you would like your moon chart for next year or a birth chart reading, so that we can help to reassure you that you are who you are and give you some relief about what's been going on for you, and maybe have a look at what's coming up for you for the coming year, just head over to my website, which is kellyjones.me, kellie.me, and take advantage of my one-time offer of 25% off for 2025% off. As I'm launching my new astrology service, and also as I'm launching my one-to-one Strala Yoga personalized private sessions, that will just come as a package, but the astrology readings and the moonology readings will come as a one-off session. And also I have a package there called Be Your Own Alchemist, where you get a mini birth chart reading, a moonology reading, 2 online moon ceremonies, and a coffee and oracle card reading. So that is, a really good way of committing to your spiritual practice. And we've made it to the end. We've done it in time. And I look forward to speaking to you all next week. Take care of your immune systems. Reflect and turn that spotlight inwards and temper your tempers. See you next week.